Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Urban Spirituality Podcast with your host, Prash. And I am delighted to be back. And every once in a while, you get a guest who's experienced something quite mystical, something quite profound. And you know that we like to go into that edgy spiritual territory and that kind of metaphysical realm where we can go and start uncovering the secrets of the universe, recognizing the truth that lies within us, answer all the questions that Captain Kirk and Spock went out in space to get, all those cool things. Well, I feel really happy because I have somebody who is playing a part in unlocking some of those mysteries in her own small but powerful way. Our special guest today has secretly been living with chronic sleep paralysis for over 3 decades. She has had to break her silence about this struggle with this phenomenon, which impacts so many people around the world, but it is not spoken about. In many cultures, it is considered highly taboo. And maybe some of you who are watching and tuning into this will know somebody who suffers from sleep paralysis. And we'll discuss definitions as we go along. However, having overcome her own sleep paralysis, the experience has brought about a deeply personal spiritual transformation and spiritual and psychic gifts. She has emerged stronger with continuously unfolding spiritual abilities. And this for me is magical. She's currently working on 2 books where she shares her methods and the ways and the techniques she's used to transform her own life. She's growing an online platform with so many people coming out from countries around the world expressing and resonating with their own sleep challenges and their own gifts that they're discovering by embracing fear and not running away from it. She's also at the forefront of this field, and she's a champion for people with these difficulties, and she's there for people in their time of spiritual and personal needs. She's expanding her brand. She's authoring. She was from South London, but she travels the world. I can say so much more, but I'm going to let her say it. Please show your respects for the wonderful Sheila Pryce Brooks. Sheila, welcome.
Thank you, Prash. Thank you. That was wonderful.
You're welcome. Sheila, it's great to have you on the show. I know that you spend time between the UK and the West Indies and other places when you're on travels, and obviously your upcoming book tours. So Let me ask you first, straight off the bat, what the heck is sleep paralysis? Share a few definitions and some context for our listeners and viewers, would you?
Okay, well, let me just say that I think it took me a long time to find out what sleep paralysis was. I had never heard of it before. As a concept, as an idea, no one had ever spoken about it. I think way back then, it was just the fact that I was having tormented sleep and didn't really know what to do about it. But for me, and also for a lot of other people, sleep paralysis is where you go to sleep like any normal person, any normal night. And at some point during your sleep, you wake up. You're still sleeping, but you wake up. It could be likened to having a dream. But when you wake up in darkness. You feel a sense of foreboding. You can't see what's around you, but you feel as though people, things, something is there watching you and is around you. There are times when you may feel a pressure, a weight on your chest. This is whilst you're still in bed, and remember, you're sleeping here, but you feel the weight on your chest, and that alone frightens you. You're gripped by the panic and the fear because you're thinking, well, let me wake up. This is a dream. This is some kind of a nightmare. But you find that you're frozen. You can't move. Your arms and legs, you have no power, no ability to move them. You're literally paralyzed. Somehow you may try to move a little finger or toe or an eyelid or something, and it seems to break it, whatever it is. And then you wake up. You wake up looking around, trying to kind of get your bearings. I think, of course, you're saying, what the heck just happened? What was that? because you're very much aware that it wasn't a dream, it wasn't a nightmare, but at the same time you were sleeping. So rationally, how do you make sense of that? That in itself is sleep paralysis, and I think that a lot of people share the same kind of experience. For some persons, it's just something that happens rarely, once in a while. For me, it was maybe 2-3 times a week. For me, it got to the point where I didn't want to sleep. I was scared to sleep. I mean, and I've always had fairly professional jobs. I was a wreck. I was tired, constantly tired, And the thing is that it's not something that you can share with anyone. I mean, you don't go to work and say, I had one of them kind of demon nights last night. I mean, you don't do that, do you? But, I would be tired. I couldn't concentrate, lose focus. And I think it was the constant fear that, is it going to happen again if I fall asleep, and therefore trying different remedies, different solutions, different ways to try and not let it happen again. And these were very much home remedies and things that I thought I could do to prevent it happening again. I did go to see the doctors at one point, and I did share it with a friend actually, as well, and both of them said, you're just tired, Sheila, get some sleep, which is really ironic, for them to tell me to get some sleep. And also they said maybe I was just stressed, overworked, that kind of thing, and that's why it was happening. The support was very little, very, very little. I went to the bookstores, looked for books on it, couldn't find anything. I searched the internet. I think the most I found on the internet were horror stories where people were sharing their experiences, and that kind of just brought back the horror of it for me. So it wasn't very helpful. I tried lots of different things, Prash, over the years, many, many things, from sleeping at different times of the day or the night, staying up as late as possible, setting the alarm so I'd maybe sleep for an hour at a time, sleeping in different rooms, sleeping in different beds, sleeping in different positions, sleeping with different sheets, candles, different oils in the room, Bibles, thinking that it was evil spirits and demons that were coming for me.
Well, actually, let me just replay on that for a moment. I know from, my own journeys that, firstly, I've experienced that. So I want to share that with our audiences. I have experienced this on more than just a handful of occasions over the years. I have experienced it plenty of times, and it is almost exactly as you describe it. You're unable to move, your throat may be choked so you can't utter, your vocal cords aren't operating, your trachea is constricted, your fingers don't move, and you really feel that there's a weight. And it's funny that you say that, people refer to it as some sort of terror. I mean, another name for it is the night terrors. It's referred to as night terrors, terror in the night. There's many of you may not know, there's an English word called a hag. They refer to certain people as an old hag. It may be it's a derogatory term for somebody who's old. People thought it would come from the old kind of witchcraft times. And that phrase, the old hag, was a reference to what people perceived to be sitting on top of them during that sleep paralysis, that it was the old hag who had come to visit upon them and they were stuck. And then you get other stories from other cultures, of course, of entities, higher entities, or let's say harmful entities, coming to take pleasure from your body. Concubine, succubine, you hear about these terms, succubines rather, coming to enjoy you, and they paralyze you and then they enjoy you sexually, almost like a psychic rape. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is there are so many different connotations and taboos around this subject. And let me ask you this. Why do you think, in all your years of research in the area, why do you think in just there is such taboo around the subject, and so many people you find are not willing to even open up that they're experiencing this at night?
I think that the taboo is really related to the spiritual, non-physical side of it. The fact that, I mean, a lot of society, I mean, what we're aware of is heaven and hell, God and the devil. The devil has demons, the devil and hell. And I think that to some extent, sleep paralysis is relatable to demons and the devil. And to some extent, the things that are seen when you experience sleep paralysis can be likened to demons and the devil, and they're around you and they're watching you. So therefore, it's quite difficult to relate something like that to colleagues, to friends and families, to say that you have this around you. I think also what's important is that it's something that we know very little about in terms of spiritual management and how to control that. So therefore, if it is, let's say, and I don't necessarily believe it in this way, but let's say that there are demons and devils who come out at night time and are attaching themselves somehow to me. My friends and family would be very wary of me, you know, thinking that it's almost like I'll have some kind of a plague or
Right.
something, because they don't want it to
affect them and
affect them.
Yeah.
Because and the worst thing is how do you get rid of it? I mean, it's not something that you can go to the doctors about, really.
No,
You know?
and it's not to be taken lightly, because a couple of 100 years ago only, in, for example, post-Civil War America, people were ostracized from society or punished at worst for even having sleep paralysis, because they were regarded as people who were evil, and therefore they were getting these visitations. You were actually cast out for even admitting to having this. And yet, you know, obviously modern science now and modern medical and psychological views on it provide a much more amiable, rational framework for us to understand these in a much more empathetic way. And so, you know, there is a deep understanding for it, but I don't want to go down the medical route here. And we'll come back to some sleep strategies from yourself later on, and things that people can do. But what I'm more curious about here is the special journey that you've been on since you've experienced them, because you're not somebody, unlike many people who experience sleep paralysis, deal with it in some kind of way, or learn to live with it and leave it at that. You've actually found it to be a gateway for something a lot more sublimer, a lot more insightful. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Well, I can say quite happily that I've been free of sleep paralysis now for maybe just over a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I haven't had any of those experiences as they were before, or as we've described. I have noticed a very dramatic shift, though. I wouldn't say that things are normal as normal as they can be, i.e. that you go to sleep and you have a little dream, maybe that you don't remember, and you wake up and it's all hunky-dory. I wouldn't say that that's what I'm experiencing now. It's almost as though the sleep paralysis has transitioned into something else, which is why the gateway that you mentioned is a good way of explaining what I feel has happened to me. It's almost as though the sleep paralysis has opened the door to another dimension, another world, so to speak, that is a non-physical world, that is energy based, and that is full of gifts and surprises and excitements. I know that I did do various practices and did various things. I didn't just wake up without sleep paralysis one day. I had made a conscious decision that I didn't want this anymore. I did do that. And I said, okay, I'm going to try this. And by doing it, it worked. It worked for me. And which is why I can say that I haven't had an episode for over a year now. But in terms of the gateway now, I have more clearer understanding of the experience, and that the experience is very much energy based on a spiritual level. And there's something, the core part of it, I think, Prash, is the fear that we associate with sleep paralysis, and that for hundreds, if not thousands of years, it's been perceived negatively, and it's developed this fear-based kind of emotion. Just to talk about sleep paralysis, it conjures those images, and you kind of feel, oh my gosh, I don't really, keep that away from me. I really don't want to get involved in that. Whereas it's simply the fact that we don't understand it, we reject it, we don't acknowledge it, but really there's something a lot deeper going on, Prash. Not everyone experiences sleep paralysis. It's the very few who experience sleep paralysis, Those who experience sleep paralysis have a unique acuity to spiritual engagement. Yes, to spiritual engagement. And therefore, they are more attuned to be able to align spiritually with what's going on. And by spiritually, I'm talking about the energy that we all possess. Whatever you want to call it, but we are all energetic beings, Yes, sorry, you were going to...
No, that's profound. We're all energetic beings. Recently at a talk, I was describing exactly that to a room full of people, reminding them that they are more than this body, that we are not. And a lot of people think, strangely, but a lot of people think that they are their minds, that we are our thoughts, we are our mind. But yet we're not. We are the possessor of our thoughts. We are the possessor of our mind. And that is a vehicle that's often used in psychology, at least in spiritual psychology and metaphysics, to help to extricate somebody's addictions and concerns and problems from their true nature by helping them to gain an outsider's perspective. The moment they recognize that they are not their thoughts, that they are the thinker of their thoughts, there is a profound liberation. A weight is lifted off their shoulders, that this is a transient, transitionary thing that will just pass, and I will persist. I will live beyond this. And that speaks to the fact that we are spiritual, energetic beings. We have no beginning, we have no end. We happen to be encased in this vehicle, which may be of black, white, yellow, whatever skin color, whatever country origin. We happen to be encased in a vehicle, but we are actually spiritual beings. And knowing that, what sort of realizations dawned upon you during that sort of gateway and that encounter, through those encounters?
I think I've been left with a clear knowing of things, and sometimes there are things that I know about in terms of information. I'll suddenly say, oh, how did I know that? But I knew it. Or there might be something that I know in a precognitive kind of way that is about to happen, or it might be this firm knowing in a factual way. You could liken it to your intuition telling you something, and you just know that that's how it is, and I think one of the things that I do know is what you just said. Yes, we are energy, spiritual energy, but that there is also that spiritual energy all around us. That much I know. It's all around us.
Mm-hmm.
It's there for us, and we can tap into it for our benefit. That much I do know, you know. And that's part of what I've learned through the gateway. And so it's almost as though when you sleep, you're able to access more easily on a spiritual level the energy that's around us and engage with it. Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you about your realization on fear. Clearly, one big thing that you've learned, sleep paralysis for you has been a powerful vehicle in order to confront fears. And I'm curious to know a little bit about that. That is, how has that sleep paralysis, or how have those experiences reshaped your fear of the dark and your fear of other things in life? How have your fears mitigated or been affected by those experiences?
I think fear is perception based. So it's how you perceive things, you
Right.
know. For a long time, I think I said earlier that sleep paralysis has been perceived negatively as
Mhm.
something evil. So therefore, that's the expectation. So it's almost as though what you perceive, that's how you expect it to be, you know. For fear, again, I'm very much conscious that it really doesn't exist, fear, apart from in your mind. And once you can control that, once you can dismiss that, then the fear just evaporates. It's not tangible, you know. It's not something that can cause you any harm unless you allow it to do so, you know, unless you let it in, the fear, because it's something that you're perceiving, you are constructing it for yourself, and it's almost unnecessary
Mm.
because there's no need to do it and put yourself through all of that, you know. So I'm now learning that the moment I'm feeling fearful or anxious
Mm-hmm.
is self-help methods to calm myself down,
Right.
to relax, and to know that it's definitely manageable,
Mm.
you know. And I think it's to be confronted. It's to be confronted and overcome.
It reminds me of a famous acronym for fear, right? You may have heard that one: false evidence appearing as real. Heard that one?
I haven't, but it's good.
Take that. You can use that one. False evidence
Thanks, Prash.
appearing as real. Ching.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I remember that.
yeah. So, and one of my friends often said that, and I think there's a lot to be said that it is perception based. So let me ask you this: for people who are struggling in the dark, people who are afraid of the dark, and by the dark, I don't just necessarily mean afraid of sleeping at night because of darkness, but who are afraid of darkness in their life, maybe darkness through other people, maybe the darkness of the shadows cast by their unhappy job, an unhappy relationship, or a difficult time with their health. What perceptions or insights could you offer or would like to share with audiences that could help them to reshape or reframe how they can overcome that darkness or encounter it?
Well, darkness is an absence of light, which means that there is always light. There is always hope. You know, there are always options, choices, opportunities, possibilities, potential, you know. I think that we can make choices. We do need to take, there's somewhere at some point a need to take responsibility for where you are, but recognize that where you are doesn't need to always be the same. You can make choices, you know. You can choose to be somewhere different, to do something different, to be with somebody different, you know. And again, there is nothing to fear because there is always the light, and therefore there is always hope, you know. I think that we mustn't be afraid of change, that we must be prepared to embrace change as something positive. I think that we are here in this physical body, on this earth, to grow, to learn, to develop, to expand. And in that means being prepared to experience new things, to do different things, to have different types of fun and laughter, to meet new people, to travel to new places. I think that's all part of, we all have the potential to do that. And we all have the capabilities to do that, to grow and to change and to expand. I think that it's not necessary. There is no need to stay in the dark. Why keep oneself in the dark, when there is so much light all around that one can engage in? You just need to make the choice. You just need to say, well, in a very real way, this is where I'm at now, and this isn't where I'm going to stay, and it's constructive and it's positive and it's so enlightening. And once you've done it, the joy and the sense of worthiness, that you then feel when you've made that step. It could be something small, or it could be a significant life change, but whatever it is, it's very empowering, and it makes you feel so self-fulfilled when you've done it, and it makes you feel like you can change and do anything you want. I mean, we all have one life to live. I mean, that's something we all have in common. So I'm always one for saying, why not make the most of it? Mm-hmm. Why not try and reach your potential, Why not experience and do different things?
Well, let me be devil's advocate. One big reason why we don't achieve our potential, I think for a lot of people, is fear of failure. Okay?
Yeah.
That's a big one. Fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of being ostracized or cast out or laughed at or cut away or distanced from people. What would you say to that? What would the Sonia what would the Sheila Sheila,
sorry,
I know we did this before our pre-interview, right? So,
yes.
Folks, those of you who are tuned in, the backstory is I had the pleasure of interviewing the wonderful Sonia Dubell, who is a celebrity yoga teacher. She's been with Richard Branson on Necker Island. She's taught Hollywood celebrities. And I was just working on her episode on the edits recently. So Sonia's been on my mind. So Sheila, please forgive me. Sheila, what would the Sheila of today say to that? That people... It's not that people don't want to aspire and reach for their objectives. It's not that they want to better themselves. It's those fears of failure, fears of being judged, and the aforementioned. What would the Sheila of today say through the accrued wisdom?
Well, all of those things that you've mentioned, Prash, are all external. They're all based on other people's views and opinions, Fear of being judged. By whom? By friends, family, I don't know, whoever. But it's all external to you. Fear of failure. Failure in whose eyes? Again, friends and family and whoever. Again, it's external to you. So to some extent, you're letting other people's views and opinions shape your life. People are very fickle. People are very judgmental. What they want today, they don't want tomorrow.
People are also very forgetful.
They are very forgetful. They forget they didn't like this. And they like it today.
Yeah, and maybe here's something to comfort people. And I often remind myself, Bill Clinton, right?
Yeah.
Those of you who are old enough to remember when he was...
I remember Bill.
Right? What did the man do, right? The Lewinsky scandal, right? The man had an indiscreet episode on more than one occasion and got caught with his pants down, literally, in the White House. It was a worldwide scandal. But guess what? Fast forward a year, maybe 18 months, it's all forgotten. Water under the bridge. The guy's loved more now. He's one of the most loved ex-American presidents out there. They completely forgot. You know, the guy publicly apologized, did this, did that. People forget.
They
People
do.
think, I think that's another big thing, Sonia. People forget. And,
Sheila.
we can take that as a comfort. We should use that to our advantage. You know what? If I screw up, so what? Like you say, people will forget. And those who are your friends or your family, those who care for you, yeah, they'll see you screw up and they'll be sticking around to help you pick up
That's
the
right.
pieces. They'll be there. When the
That's
dust
right.
settles, they'll be the ones who are there. If they're not there, hey, they didn't matter.
That's it. That's it exactly. That's it. And that's the attitude really to have, I think, going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be
Yeah.
bound by other people, other things. Have confidence in yourself and your own judgment and things that you want to do to make you happy. I mean, it's your life after all, isn't it? It's not somebody else's. So it's yours to do with what you want. And so if you want to do something, go for it. Go for it. Don't worry about the peanut gallery.
Well, let me ask you that. What has been one of your most empowering ways to reclaim that personal power?
The ways to do it. Oh, I mean, I live it every day, I mean, that's one of my kind of guiding principles. And it's not that I'm selfish, it's just that I think of myself and I think, what do I want to do? What will make me happy? What do I choose? Because if I don't do that, other people will do that and I will be at liberty to them. So I do frame it that I do frame it that way.
Choice. I like that. You've injected
It's
choice into it, right? You choose. Well, it's always a choice. You can
That's right.
be this way. You can choose to be that way. It's still a choice. You may not like that thing that's scaring you, but it's a choice.
Yeah. And I think that we forget that.
Yeah, nice. Real nice. And I think just recognizing and reminding yourself that you have that choice automatically invokes that personal power again. It's taking back that control that you have of the situation, right? Viktor Frankl, right? He couldn't change the fact that he was in a concentration camp. He couldn't change that, but he was able to change how he perceived the torture that was happening. He was able to reframe what it meant for him, for his family. And he was able to, not only that, but he went one step further and trained his son and his wife by his own example, how to deal in those scenarios so that they were able to live and thrive after those terrible episodes. And it all came down to what he said is choice. You have that choice.
That's right. And I think we do forget that, and we do need to recognize that we don't have to be victims. We can choose otherwise and choose to be free. And I think that's also part of my mission and my message, is to free persons from this sense of victimhood, this sense of being subdued and having to accept what's been put on us, when you do have a choice in all things.
So you could say, if I may paraphrase, that your mission that you have chosen, at least one big part of your mission, is to help people to open their eyes, so to speak, to the light.
Yeah.
Though they may be in the dark, though they may sleep in the dark, though they may have sleep paralysis or may not, both those classes of people have the need to open their eyes and embrace the light in order to overcome the darkness that persists in their life through fear and through other negative things.
That's exactly it. That is wonderful. That is exactly it. Yes.
We'll just have to capture that one, Sheila, and I'll send it to you to include in the preface of your book.
Okay.
Mission. on the back cover, right?
Yes.
Tell us what's on your radar. I mean, we've just touched on it there, but what's on your radar? What's coming up on your radar? We've got books. I mean, what's on the horizon for this year and into 2020, Sheila?
Okay, well, I'm working on my book, which should be out hopefully for Christmas, which is called Beyond the Nightmare, which is focused on sleep paralysis and overcoming it. So it's packed with ideas and suggestions and ways that you can work to relieve yourself of sleep paralysis. It's also quite informative. So if you want information about sleep paralysis or to help friends or family then that's the book for you. So it will be available Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, the usual booksellers places. I've also been asked to work alongside another author on another book. That book is coming out in October. Now, October is the key date because it's available free on PDF for a couple of weeks in October. So if you'd like to get the PDF of that, then you'd need to send me your email address and I'll add you to the mailing list.
And what's that book called, Sonia?
So that's a health and well. That's it.
I'll get it. I'll get there, Sheila.
You'll get there. Okay.
What's that book called? The one that.
So it's Organic Health and Wellness. It's called.
Organic Health and Wellness.
Yes, and it's filled with lots of ideas and suggestions for your general health and well-being.
Okay, so that's 2 books on the horizon, and I know that
that's
obviously.
2 books.
And we talked about the speaking tour that will come accompany the launch of your own book, of course, Sheila, and that'll take you. Internationally, of course. So that'll be something I'm sure that you're excited about, and
I am very
that'll
much
come.
so. Very much so.
I look forward.
I'm looking forward to that.
And I'm looking forward to be invited to the Jamaica. No, I got to be there for that.
For sure, Prash.
Okay, if it combines with the jazz festival out there in Negro, hey, I'm cool. That's okay. It's okay by me.
I'll check the dates and see what I can do. Yes.
Work it out with me. All right. So a couple of you've shared a few tips already throughout this beautiful interview, but what last few tips would you care to share with the audience around this area of sleep paralysis? If somebody's having it or having something of a similar nature, maybe even they're not having that, but the restless nights, is there anything you'd like to share further? I
think that I understand very much about, for anyone that's experiencing sleep paralysis, what you're going through. And I know that when we say not to be afraid, it's a mighty jump from where you are to suddenly, the distance is very wide. If one moment somebody is filled with fear of sleeping and then you say, don't be afraid, it's a big gap, but I would say that it's very important to start to think that this is something that can be overcome, that this is something not to be feared, and that and that there is a need maybe to perceive it different. I think just by having that intention starts the shift, starts the movement away from that fear. That's deep root.
So intention, that's powerful. Right? Setting the intention.
That's right. Set that intention and set it regularly. I would say try and. I meditate regularly. And I would say try and incorporate that into your life. It will definitely help with clarity and that engagement. It will make it a lot smoother. Obviously sleep paralysis isn't something that will be gone overnight. It phases itself out. It will transition out. But you should also look out for other hints or signs of some kind of spiritual awakening amidst all of what's going on, and listen to your intuition and listen to yourself as well,
I think that's very helpful. I know that those of you who are kind of more in connection with your higher self, those who feel that you're connected with something higher, it's often said in spiritual circles that you can reach out to your guides. Everybody has a guide, a spirit guide. People have higher energetic beings, according to the ancient teachings from all traditions, that there are higher beings. I think most traditions acknowledge that there are higher beings looking after people in at least the human form of life, certainly. And you could reach out to those spirit guides. You may not know who they are, but you can just put an intention out that if you're out there, spirit guides, help to protect my sleep and help me to get the most out of my nighttime journeys. That can go into a whole other conversation about astral travel, how the cord between the soul and between the consciousness and the body can be extracted, and then how the soul can travel in its astral body at night. But that's going into a whole other conversation. And I don't want to finish this episode without a few rapid fire questions for you, Sheila. we're going to be completely unprepared for. Just
Okay. All right, then. I'm ready.
Right. Rapid fire, real quick, short, sharp answers. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Jamaica.
Okay. Enough said.
Nice.
You don't even have to explain that. You don't have to explain that one. All right. Enough said. All right. What key book or two books would you want to have with you if you were stranded somewhere for a long time in some island?
I could never answer that just like that.
What comes to you?
Oh my gosh, there were just so many books, so many books.
Which would you take if you were on that place next month?
If I was there next month? Oh gosh. There were just too many, Prash.
Give me one.
I'm just an avid reader, so
I know you are. Give me one that's stuck on your mind recently.
Okay, there was a Nelson Mandela book, his autobiography. I've read that recently, and that was an amazing book. Oh gosh, there's just too many, Prash.
All right, let me ask you this: if you could have any superpower that you were granted, right? You could be a superhero for a day. What superpower would you want, and what would you do with it?
What would I do with it?
Yeah, what superpower would you want, and what would you do with it?
Oh gosh, to be invisible, perhaps, or to read people's minds.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to read people's minds.
And what would you do with that?
What would I do with it? I'd be able to know what everyone is thinking, and it would be good if no. It would just be good to know what people are thinking.
To help them better. To help them better. Okay, love that. Okay.
To see where they're at. To see where they're at.
I love that. You check in on them so you can help them check themselves and get better. All right, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, one more.
One more, Prash.
One more. What would the Sheila sitting here today, what one piece of advice would the Sheila of today give the Sheila of 20 years ago?
What would I give? That there's no rush. That everything will come at the right time.
Jamaican time.
Yes, Jamaican
Come on.
time. Yes, Prash.
All right.
That's great.
Can I just say, I'm going to be really cheeky that I do some accents. There's, those who know me know it. And I picked up a kind of Rastafarian accent. I can't say it was Jamaican or not, so it isn't particularly one state, right? But it was just like a Rasta accent. And I picked up that one accent from just one movie, Steven Seagal's Mark for Death. Right back in the early 1990s. I watched that movie and man, them thing, I rocked that accent. Booyakasha. I really picked that up, And I played that in a role. I played a gangster. I played all kind of role, So that was I had to share that with
Prash, that sounds really authentic. Just like the real stuff.
You can't blame a boy for trying. That was my creative, adventurous, teenage and 20s and
oh gosh, it sounds very good, Prash.
Sheila, you're too kind. I was going to call you Sonia there for a sec. I'm going to have at some stage, somewhere along this journey, I'm going to have to hook you up with Sonia, and I should rap because she's doing hypnobirthing, right? She's an expert in hypnotherapy and birthing, and this whole thing around hypnobirthing. You're doing the whole, there's got to be some sort of something there. And between her
I'm
life
sure.
in Florida and you up the road in Jamaica, something's got to happen,
Yes.
All right, Sheila, listen, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Folks, thank you for being with us till the end and humoring my erratic, funny accent and all the other fun stuff. But on a serious note, we hope that having Sheila shared some of her insights will prove useful to you or someone that you know. And at the very least, it will allow you to get the insights to start to reclaim your personal power and to start to overcome your fear of fear and start to recognize that fear can be embraced and that it is light that we ultimately all come from and that we are. And that by recognizing that, we can start to dissolve that fear and live the life that we truly deserve. Sheila, thank you so much. Folks, thanks so much for listening. Peace out. Namaste.
Okay. Prash, can I just say one more thing? I know you said goodbye.
Oh,
Just
no,
my
no,
email
please.
address. Just my email address.
Of course. Sheila, how could I? How dare I? Sheila,
Yeah,
where can we find out more about you and where do we follow you? Twitter as well, I believe.
Okay, so website is Sheila Pryce Brooks, and it's Price with a Y.
PRY, yeah.
Twitter is S Price Brooks. Instagram is Sheila Pryce Brooks. Facebook, Sheila Pryce Brooks. And send me a message. I'm really quite good at getting back to persons, and I'm open to receiving anything, any suggestions, any concerns you have. Just send me a message. I'll get back to you.
It's brilliant. We'll make sure that those details are in the notes for the show as well. And people will be able to connect with you straight after. So once again, thanks, Sheila. Thanks for being on the show and shining your light for the audiences.
And thank you for being there and for inviting me.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Take care, Sheila. Folks, take care. All the best until next time.
All right. Bye, Prash.